So, there's this new Spider-Man show on the block, and I can't lie, I think it's pretty darn good. Before the show came out and we could only watch the trailer, there was really one big universal concern: the animation. The show has this low FPS animation style that honestly makes it difficult to watch at times. Even running the show at 1.2x speed can make it look a million times better. Well, okay, the animation is bad. That's normal for a lot of shows in their first season, but it's not a good excuse for a cajillion dollar company like Disney. But we do know that the show got greenlit for at least two more seasons after this one, so there's a possibility of the animation improving. But what makes this show worthy of multiple seasons? It may not be the animation yet, but I think the story is surprisingly engaging in this first season. In this universe, the story essentially hinges on what if Tom Holland's version of Spider Man never got approached by Tony Stark to join his team to fight Captain America in Civil War. It's a simple premise, but I think it's actually quite effective. In the first episode, the show recreates the scene from Captain America Civil War almost word for word with even the same song, and the only difference is that Tony Stark isn't the one sitting on Peter's couch. It's Norman Osborn. I love this scene because it gives the audience context to this world. This isn't an entirely different Spider-Man, but actually just Tom Holland's Peter in an alternate reality where he doesn't join the Avengers right away. This idea mainly works because Coleman Domingo as Norman Osborn is frankly amazing in the show. There are small nuances to his character that don't matter until later, and I love how small moments that show how deceptive he is lead to one big secret he's been keeping the entire time. Really, most of the voice actors do a pretty amazing job in the show, and I like almost every character. But this leads into one of the problems I have. I don't think Peter is a great character in this first season. And you might say, how can you like this show if you don't like the main character? Well, hear me out. I still like Peter in this show, but he doesn't feel unique to this universe. Even though the show is trying to create a new Spider-Man universe, the origins for Spider-Man himself fails to be distinguishable from that seen in the MCU. And I don't mean origin as in Uncle Ben dying. We don't need to see that again. I mean Peter becoming the hero he's meant to be. I'm going to spoil minor details about the show to discuss what I mean, so here's a spoiler warning for the first couple episodes. So, as mentioned before, instead of Tony Stark taking Peter under his wing, it's Norman Osborn. It's still an interesting idea because maybe we get to see how different Peter would have turned out if he had the wrong person guiding him. And while we get glimpses of Norman's bad influence at the end of the season, Peter essentially goes through the same arc that we see in Homecoming, where he disappoints Norman in this case and is forced to do things on his own. It also should be mentioned that Peter gets his suits made by Norman, similar to how Tony makes his own suits in the MCU. And I always was upset by this because I just like the homemade suits better. This all feels like ground we've covered in Spider-Man Homecoming. I don't know, the idea is interesting, but when specific plot points about Peter putting others in danger, failing, and then losing his superior's approval are reused from Homecoming, it kind of feels like we're seeing the same stuff again. Whenever the show gives us cool new ideas we haven't seen before is when it's at its best. Like giving us a Tombstone origin story, or even a different version of Harry Osborn who's an Instagram celebrity, and kind of awesome in the show. Another aspect of this show is the interpersonal drama between Peter and his friends and family that the Spider-Man character has become known for. There's one Spider-Man show that I think handles interpersonal teenage drama best, and it's Spectacular Spider-Man. This show does such a great job at demonstrating just how hard it is for Peter to make time for both Spider-Man and Peter Parker. Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man attempts to illustrate this balancing act, but it honestly isn't as interesting or compelling as the drama between the side characters like Lonnie and Pearl or Norman Osborn and Doc Ock. I think it's not as compelling in this show too because Peter just does a terrible job at keeping his identity a secret. He is seriously so careless about revealing his secret identity in the show that I wonder why he even tries. There's a scene where he just walks into a building and takes his mask off like it's nothing when there is clearly someone there. And I get it, teenagers are bad at keeping secrets, blah blah blah, but Peter literally doesn't try. But back to the side characters. I think the side characters are all great in this show, and the villain characters certainly stand out. The season is 10 episodes long, and I'm so glad it doesn't waste any of its runtime with uninteresting characters. Every episode left me wanting more, and the final episode probably left me starved the most to see more Spider-Man, which is crazy to think when we've been spoiled with so much Spider-Man stuff in the last couple decades. This show is also trying its best to have a comic book aesthetic, with its occasional comic book panel shots and comic book covers at the beginning of every episode, and I think it's pretty cool. I think the similarities between Tom Holland and this Spider-Man will mainly be a problem for this season, so I'm not too worried about it. I'm excited to see what direction they'll go in next. So yeah, I like this show and I think you should watch it. I hope the animation gets better and they keep doing cool stuff with Spider-Man villains. I'm gonna give Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man Season 1 a 59.5 out of 70.